Okay, I might as well call the meeting to order. First item is to approve the agenda. All in
Second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. First action item. Approval of design task services task water main replacement. Right.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. My name is Amolya Paudel, Program Manager with the Capital Pro. I'm here this morning to seek your approval on the Board of Design Task Order for Lipscomb and Austin Water Main Replacement Project. A few months ago, asset management team presented to the board the background on the work we've been doing on condition assessment of our linear infrastructure and the path forward. This slide here, a real high level items that is applicable to the project at hand today. Loudon Water, our overall linear infrastructure average pipe age is about 30 years. We're one of the younger utility in the area in that way. However, certain pockets, especially Sterling area, is now old, and the pipes in the area are in need of repair, rehab, or replacement. We've identified approximately 70 miles of cast iron pipe and the goal is to replace them over the next 14, 15 years. And in addition to that, there are a couple of miles of ductile iron pipe. Even though they are newer than the cast iron pipe, they've exhibited higher corrosion and more concentration of breaks. And we've prioritized those projects to proceed ahead of the cast iron pipes. This project today is one of those. It is ductile iron pipe, relatively newer than cast iron, but then they've been exhibiting higher deterioration. And really quick, so asset management team over the last couple of years, they've been doing condition assessment and taking into factors things like pipe age, material, break history, local site condition, and then the likelihood and consequences of failure. Asset management has come up with a priority list of projects. I know the texts are really small. The exhibit to the right, that color-coded map that outlines our path forward for pipe replacements for the next 15 years. So every year, the goal is we will pick up a project or two in design and do the same, put it out to bid for construction. And that's the list to the right there in small text. Diving deep into this in the project today, Loudon Water, we operate 3 distinct pressure zones in the central system. This project is in Sterling area, countryside. It's 510 zone. It's just north of Route 7. And further diving into detail in terms of location, it's a few street in countryside. The project entails about 3,200 linear feet of ductile iron pipe. And this is area where we've seen a lot of breaks in the last several years. Is the reason why this project was prioritized. So the goal would be to replace that approximately 3,200 linear feet of 6-inch and 8-inch water main. And along with it, 69 water service lines and 69 sanitary sewer laterals.
Well, did you want us to wait until
I can
done?
take questions if you have.
Good. Yeah, the previous slides you were emphasizing the cast iron pipes, but now we're switching to the first project and it's ductile iron pipe. And
Yeah, that was more of my effort to kind of highlight the work we've been doing on the rehab replacement side. And yeah, like I said, this one is ductile. So the reason we're taking this project before getting through the cast iron is because of this higher concentration of breaks we've seen in this. And we did do the same. Last year, we had a project in front of you in Oakdale, and similar in the vicinity. We had to do the same, is a much higher concentration of breaks, even though the pipe was newer, and we decided to prioritize that project ahead of cast iron pipe.
thank you.
Yeah. And what you would...
Brakes weren't on the ductile pipe, it was on the cast iron?
No, it was on ductile.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. So and we will have a couple of these projects moving forward. And what you will see is when we bring cast iron project forward, they will generally be larger in magnitude. So we're already working on a project in design. It's about replacement of 5 miles of cast iron. We'll be bringing another one down in a few months. That also will be about 5 miles. So we try to go big with cast iron, but ductile iron it's really location specific upgrade that we need. So these projects, the ductile irons ones would be relatively small in size. So our current standard is when we serve more than 12 properties, it's 18s minimum. So yeah, everything minimum 18s unless planning requires asks us to upsize it further.
You're right. Service loops. That is just to the meter. You're not going beyond the meter.
We are not. Yeah, so that's been our standard practice. Is we replace it up to the property line, and then connect it back to existing service line.
You know, it's the ductile isn't lasting as long as some of the cast iron.
Ideally, it should not, but we have looked into this, and what we're finding is there are certain pockets where the soil does have higher corrosion potential, and it also has to do with bedding, like the way it was constructed back in the days. When improper bedding leads to earlier failure, then the age of the pipe is what we've found out.
Thank you.
So in terms of consultant, we've selected AMT engineers for the project. A few months ago, board approved a new roster of civil basic ordering agreement consultants. AMT was one of them. We discussed with AMT to understand their resource availability for a project like this and experience with other agencies. And based on that, we found AMT to be a suitable consultant for this project and started discussing scope with them.
And it is their first task.
This is their first task. For the civil side, so AMT is working on another record drawing BOA currently, but for the civil basic ordering agreement, this should be their first task. So on this slide here, I have some typical tasks that would be activities that would be involved in this project. Your typical project management activities. On the design side, the project will require a detailed topographic survey and base mapping. We will be doing utility designation work. That's kind of critical on a project like this. We will be getting about 8 geotechnical borings. So there is geotechnical investigation involved. And then ultimately to prepare a bid-ready plans and specs for competitive bidding. And additionally, cost estimating. And I see I missed easement plat, so we will need a couple easement plats. And in terms of permitting, relatively straightforward. We expect the permits needed would be Loudoun County's grading permit, VDOT's land use permit, and VSMP permit from the state. So.
I have a question. Are these temporary construction easements or permanent easements for?
I can go back to there. Let me go. I don't know if you can. I think I can zoom in, but if you look at this,
The red dots?
I don't know why I
Which court?
had an.
Oh, there you got it.
Okay. Which one is this? Here. So if you look at our goal, when we take up a project like this, our goal is to connect any loops, gaps in our system, just to make the system more efficient. We have a goal to close the loop where possible. And if you look at this, there is a small gap here. So the goal would be to see if we can get easement and close the gap. So if we are able to get that agreement from the property owners to get the easement, the project's goal would be to close this gap right here. And we will need a couple easements to close that gap.
So it's the HOA in that one lot then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And normally,
Good luck
in a
there.
setting like this, so we've been successful getting easements from the property owners. And the last task here, bid phase services. It's a standard bid phase service we get from consultant. Their help responding to questions from bidders, preparing addendums, and preparing confirmed documents. So fee breakdown here. So this, what I have here for you is a very high level breakdown of the fee that we've negotiated with AMT. This is a result of multiple back and forth and a review of a much granular detail review of the cost. And finally, we found this fee to be reasonable. The base fee here is we expect this construction to be in the range of like $3.2 million. So compared to the construction cost, it's about 9.4. Is slightly higher than what we've seen on the past linear projects. But I feel one of the reasons for that is AMT is new. So there is some learning or setting up some standard stuff that they do not, which does not come with for this project, right? So this would be their first. So there is some upfront work that we think will take, we found it reasonable that it takes a little bit more than a consultant that has been working with us for last 7, 8, 10 years. Yeah, this is the fee that we've negotiated with the consultant.
Just curious, you mentioned some back and forth. I don't recall where they started at in terms of their
Yeah,
estimate.
384.
384.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that the bedding is sort of the culprit and the reason for this design. Is there a substantial subsurface utility investigation that's associated with this to get ahead of it instead of finding it during construction?
You talk about existing utilities? Yeah, so typically on a project like this, we rely on mis-utility to markings, and then where we see conflict, you see on the last item there, I have allowance for 12,000. Bulk of that is utility test pitting. So when we see potential conflict, we do have budget set aside for test pits, actual field verification of existing utilities. So yeah, and the number of those needed would be kind of identified during the design.
What I meant to say is that we have a built-in budget for the trench. If what we found out is that an improper trench may be the reason for all these failures.
You had mentioned earlier the geotechnical elements of the scope for this one as well. Is that sort of addressing Mr. Vega's question?
Just the construction cost estimated and associated with this design. If the reason for the failures is due to improper trenching
Yes.
30 years ago, is there an increased budget item for retrenching the 3,900 linear feet?
You have a sense as to whether this project's replacing in the current trench, or are we moving
okay, now
this?
I get it. Okay, that's actually part of the scope. Is the consultant will be looking at can we offset it in a new trench and completely kind of just abandon it in place? Okay, sorry,
Thank you.
I did not follow the question. Yeah, but if I mean, this is a pretty utility congested. I mean, it's fairly narrow streets, and we often run into not finding that other space to put the water line. But yes, if we do end up replacing it in place, then we will look at engineered fill or something to address that issue. Project schedule here, so you will see that we've estimated 18 months for design, which may come across as longer than needed for a project like this. But this is primarily driven by, so we expect about 18 months. We would have allocated 12 months, but because this project, this is AMT's first project, and also we need easement that I mentioned earlier. And what we're finding is even on a relatively straightforward easement like this, the lien holder, the banks take a really long time to process the easement. So we're giving ourselves some additional month just to take into account that extra time. But the goal would be as soon as the design is complete, we have the permits and easements in hand, we will proceed with advertising the project.
You mentioned the AMT has supported us on the other BOA. Could you elaborate on what type of work they were performing?
So currently, one of the BOA that we have is record drawing GIS. So they've been, some of the work that I know they're doing is helping us finalize the record drawings. And then they've also been working on easement mapping. So we're digitizing all of the easements and they're working on. So those are the two tasks I am aware of.
I would just add, AMT's been on that contract probably a decade or more. So we've been very pleased with their work on that. And just as a quick refresher, here at Loud and Water, we require fees be paid by developers for new projects, and then we manage our record drawing and GIS data acquisition through this consultant, AMT, and a couple of others that we have under that BOA, and we've been very pleased with that process.
This snapshot of CIP. So we've been tracking this project as Water 202, and the driver here clearly is operational and maintenance need and enhance the reliability of the system. And we had budgeted about 300,000 for planning and design for the project. And this is my last slide, so I can take any more questions or have the motion in front of you, Mr. Chairman.
You to make the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for the Lipscomb and Austin water main replacement project to AMT Engineering, Inc. for $294,900 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager. Total authorized budget of $309,600. Additional costs will require board approval. In addition, to the motion, I'd like this to go on consent.
You got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Second item, water construction contract for reclaimed water location on Lincoln County Parkway.
The next request here is a request to award construction contract for the Loudoun County Parkway Reclaimed Waterline Relocation Project to William A. Hazel, the contractor. This project is located here in the DCH campus along Loudoun County Parkway at the plant site. So Dominion is in the process of designing and constructing 500 kV high voltage transmission main from Aspen to Golden substation, and the green line, the green solid line here. This one's not. That's that's the route Dominion is taking for this project. As you see, the project passes through our campus. So in 2025, Loudoun Water granted easements to Dominion Power for this high voltage transmission main. And as you see in this exhibit here, in that same corridor, we have an existing 16-inch reclaimed water line shown in yellow here, happens to be within that easement. So this reclaimed main is in conflict with the Dominion's proposed pole locations. It was the primary driver. We need to move this existing main outside of Dominion's easement. So in addition to conflict with Dominion's pole, we also looked into potential personnel safety concerns and potential corrosion concerns, where the drivers, we decided to move this reclaimed main outside of Dominion's easement. And in the process, the added benefit is this provided us the opportunity to upsize this main to 24-inch, which would help the distribution system hydraulics.
That's the existing one is metal.
It's PVC pipe.
Oh, it's PVC?
16-inch
PVC.
PVC.
PVC, okay.
And that's one of the changes we've in our engineering design manual. A thing that had changed is we've kind of moved from PVC pipe to ductile for our reclaimed main, especially closer to the plant where you expect higher pressure. So that so this one would be a change. I will be talking about that a little bit more in the next slide. So as you see in this exhibit, the red dotted line is Dominion's easement that we granted in 2025. The green dotted line is the existing PVC, 16-inch PVC pipe. It's actually a little bit difficult to see, but the solid black line just outside of Dominion's easement this is the proposed location of the new reclaimed main. The project entails about 1,600 feet of new 24-inch ductile iron pipe and associated valves and air release valves. And since this is ductile, we will be providing a full-on passive cathodic protection to the pipe. The project will require pretty major shutdown of our reclaimed system. A lot of data centers will be impacted, so a lot of coordination would go into this work at the time when we're ready to switch to the new pipe. And then there is associated landscaping work. And I also have a note here to say, so the scope of work on this project, the reason I added this note is we will see in the CIP slide that the budget for this project now is more than what we had planned for during our CIP process, and it's primarily driven by expanded scope of work. So when we planned this project last year, the goal was to replace 16-inch PVC pipe with 16-inch PVC pipe and just outside of Dominion's easement. But as we started executing the project, we realized that upsizing it to 24-inch made sense, considering our future needs, and also decided to extend the length of pipe. And instead of keeping it just outside of Dominion's easement, we added another 400 linear feet of upsize, which increased the cost of the project.
You're going to explain about the reason we're going from PVC to ductile. Something, just trying to understand what we should.
Sure. Yeah, so over time, I think this is based on our experience, what we've learned and what we see on the water side, all of the pipes are ductile. I mean, we only use ductile for a high pressure system, right? So on reclaimed in the past, we used PVC, but over time, what we've learned is when you have higher pressure, it's a ductile iron, slightly expensive in terms of upfront cost. But when you look at the life you get out of it and the ability of ductile to handle higher pressure, that slightly increased premium that you pay makes a lot more sense. You get more out of ductile iron pipe than PVC.
Better return on investment.
Better return on investment.
So how far outside of the actual power line is the iron pipe going to be? So it's outside the easement, the line's right by the road.
So at the end of this project, the green solid line that you see, that would be 24-inch ductile. But with this project, we will be tying it back to existing pipe. The existing is PVC. So in the future, when we feel the need for upsizing, it will continue with future projects.
I don't think you understand my question, the reasoning for it. So a 500 kVA line at 60 hertz, there's a lot of energy that goes out of the line and comes back in the line every 60 cycles a second. If you have metal through there, it can conduct. Now I understand this is underground, but I was just kind of curious, how far from the actual power, the radius of that incoming and outgoing power.
So I may not have all the details, but our asset management team, that actually was a separate study that RK&K is working with Dominion, and it provided recommendation on how far we should be taking into account the voltage of this transmission mains. On this one, I think the recommendation was to be minimum 30 feet out, and we are more than 30 feet away from the line.
You can take a fluorescent tube and stand underneath a 500 kVA line, and it will light up.
Yeah, and that actually is a pretty major task order that asset management is working on with Dominion. Not only on this, all of our other infrastructure where Dominion is putting high voltage mains. So we are looking at location by location and any mitigation measures that needs to be implemented. Yeah, that's a pretty major effort already underway.
Thank you.
So there are no anodes or anything of that sort that need to be put on this main?
For cathodic protection, yes, we will be providing anodes to this pipe. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. Now, what I remember when we were discussing the easement a couple of years ago, I think it was Mr. Young that brought up that this is a proffered buffer, and it's an important part of our approvals. Is it permissible to just abandon the existing pipe and not remove it?
Very good question. So that was one of our concern when we started the project. So we did hold a pre-application meeting with the county and shared with them the project, and the county's guidance was, since I typically we would have opted to remove that existing pipe, but based on the county permitting department's guidance, so we will be putting the new pipe outside of the proffer, and the existing pipe we will only remove it where it doesn't impact the buffer, but where it impacts the existing buffer, we'll just abandon it, and that would not result in any.
Thank you.
I would just add one last detail that ties into your questioning, and I think it was fortunate in that we were able to work with RK&K and understand, where we can locate in a safe space within, variance from the 500 kV line. But that's been helpful to us because, as you may recall, we were very concerned with maintaining our flexibility to expand the primary clarifier treatment process of Broad Run, which you can kind of see just off the edge of the page there. So we're finding a happy medium and a balance here where we're able to remain, tight against Dominion's easement, but also maintain that flexibility in the future expansion of Broad Run.
To clarify, is it outside of the fence line that's shown on there, or within?
Just to the bottom, you can see the outline of the building, and then our intent would be in the future we would expand to the west, to the top of the page there.
I know I'm jumping a slide, but we talked about the fact that Dominion is paying for this project. And it sounds like they're paying not only for an upgrade, but for additional footage. And they're putting the cost, do I have that wrong, Maggie?
I can take that one. So Dominion, our asset management team is working with Dominion on reimbursement, not only for this project, but it's a pretty long list. So when we presented the cost to Dominion, we did present the entire cost, and they seemed agreeable. So they have agreed, but the payment has not been made. There is a slight potential that they would come back and ask the justification. But at this point, what we presented to Dominion is the entire project cost, and they were in agreement.
They're paying for us to upgrade and it lengthen.
Yes,
That's a good deal.
it is.
Just great.
So next slide here is regarding procurement. Most of the project that we bring forward to you for construction, those go through competitive bidding, and unless we find a reason not to go with the lowest bidder, it goes to the lowest bidder. This project is little different. So we had some constraints and needs and the commitments we made to Dominion to this project before they begin their construction. We determined that. We needed a sole source to meet those commitments we made to Dominion, right? So the primary reason here is we already have a contractor working in this general area for the future site work for future plant expansion. So William Hazel has been working there for a while, and this project will require a grading permit from the county, and the Hazel already has that grading permit. Loudoun County typically does not issue two grading permits for two different contractors to work in the same site at the same time. And they also already have a registered land disturber certificate. So the choice was to kind of wait until Hazel is done with their work, and then we begin this work. That would then not allow us to meet the commitments we had made to Dominion. Dominion plans to begin their construction before the end of the year. So a typical competitive bidding process, waiting for Hazel to close out their project would not allow us to meet that schedule. So based on those reasons, we decided to sole source this work. And Hazel is a contractor known to do this kind of work in the county. So enough confidence there to proceed with Hazel. So for that reason, we are sole sourcing this contract. So I think you have a question? Oh, I thought you were getting ready to ask a question. And also I wanted to kind of point out that Code of Virginia does allow sole source when there is justification. So we went through a process where we have documented the reason we are sole sourcing this contract.
Your procurement department wouldn't let you do it without it.
Yeah. So in terms of cost, so the engineer for this project was J2. J2's cost estimate for the project is in the range of $1.64 to $2.1 million. And the proposal and the cost that we negotiated with Hazel is $101,942,000. And in addition to J2's estimate, we also had other recently, just in the last year or two, we've undertaken several these larger pipe projects. So we had other references prepared by independent cost class AACE class 1 estimates that we were able to use as reference to do cost comparison. And based on these comparison with available data, engineers estimate, we found Hazel's proposal of $1.94 million to be acceptable for this project. And as we've already discussed, Dominion has agreed to reimburse Loudon Water for the cost we incur on this project.
Well, you had mentioned the outage, and forgive me for not asking before, how long do you anticipate downtime?
So talking to Hazel, we're estimating about maximum 12 hours. 8 to 12 hours is, yeah.
Thank you.
But like I said, this will be a pretty major shutdown of the system. So there will be coordination well in advance. The work itself is 8 to 12 hours of shutdown. Once upon receiving board's approval, the goal on this project is we will immediately move into construction. The core work we expect. So we do expect the project to be completed before the end of the year, early like in January, and that's when Dominion plans to begin their work. So.
I just have a general question. I was looking at, when you mentioned the estimate was to 2.1 million. When you factor in what their cost was, but when you after the contingency budget, it puts it above that estimate. So as an organization, how does that factor in when there's an estimate and we exceed it, when you factor in their contingency amount? We would be over the budget when you factor in the contingency amount. Just understand what position there is an organization.
You're referencing maybe what Dominion is agreed to.
Look at, the budget was 2 point, the high end of the budget was, the estimate, I should say, high end of the estimate was 2.1. But when you factor in their original bid, but you put in the contingency amount, it puts us over that 2.1 million.
Yeah, by 36,000.
Yeah, just curious as to what as an organization, does that factor in? Was the estimate only a guideline? Is it a guideline or?
Yeah,
Mr.
Moody, if I may. So when we do the CIP budget, that's typically done in the August, September timeframe, and we're using our best estimate at that time. And then we'll get actual estimates from engineers. And if it's over that estimate, that usually causes us to take a slight look and say, did we miss something? Did the engineers miss something? Or is the market just indicating that costs have increased since we did an estimate 4 to 8 to 9 months ago? And if it's over the project budget that we've put in the CIP, as you know, historically, we typically do not spend 100% of our CIP budget. So we'll identify projects that have either slipped or maybe we have projects that have come in under budget that we know we have savings from, and we'll look to those to transfer money. There will be instances, we've had them in the past, where a project comes in well above in our engineer's estimate, and we'll take a hard look at those. And what we've done in the past is we've also on those projects, because maybe we didn't get enough bids where we felt comfortable that was an accurate bid for what we thought the work was, and we'll repackage, maybe redesign the RFP and put it out to bid again in hope of getting a better price going forward.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an oddball observation that the engineer's estimate on this job and the engineer's estimate on the valve job are almost the same. 1.6. I think one was 1.6 to 2.1, and the other was 1.6 to 2.06. Just an odd observation, there's no merit whatsoever, but I just thought I'd mention that.
So the last slide here I have is a CIP snapshot. Like I said, we've been tracking this project as Rec 21, and we've already gone through the drivers for this project. So and that's the third bullet there is, so we allocated last year when we budgeted this project, we budgeted $1.11 million for design and construction. We're clearly above that, but that's driven by added scope of work, the scope that got added during execution. And again, same thing, Dominion. So our estimate when we discussed this project with Dominion, presented our cost, we were about $2 million. Now with this project, upon completion of construction, depending on where we end, that would be a revised number we will present to Dominion for reimbursement. And that's the last slide. If any questions before the motion.
When we agree with Dominion, let's say, is there are there documents connected with it? Is it a letter agreement? Is it a contract? Or, I'm just curious,
For
how
reimbursement,
did they commit to it so that they don't go back on it?
it is
Or is
a
it
bit of
verbal?
an honor, I think, because it's not only this project. So like I said, I think Kathleen and asset management team, they're working on 28, 30 different locations where we have these issues we're trying to resolve based on Dominion's
With the
project.
yeah.
So there is like pretty long list of reimbursement items, and we hold meeting with Dominion every month. But in terms of like, do we have something actually in writing other than email? I need to confirm with
Email is writing.
Yeah, email.
Emails in
Definitely.
writing,
We've had
yeah.
correspondence with Dominion through emails.
But I would like to also connect to when we granted the right of way to Dominion for the Aspen to Golden easement, the language of that agreement provides that they are responsible for the cost to relocate anything existing inside of that swath that they would cause to need to be relocated. Then we followed on to that. Which is recorded. We followed onto that with discussions and a letter to sort of outline where we are on the estimating of cost of the project and so forth. So really to get at your questions.
Semi-honor system.
Well,
Well,
it's part of the easement
It's
document.
part of the easement agreement, so that's signed and recorded. So that's guaranteed. It's just as we've gone along, we've sought to keep them informed of where we are on the project, the estimate, and that process, helps button it up and keep expectations where they need to be.
Pretty well negotiated easement document.
Mr. Chairman, I have the motion in front of you, and I did want to make a point that we've started to do this on construction projects, so we've started requesting 10% contingency. And that's what you see here is, in addition to the proposal from Hazel, we are requesting 10% contingency for construction on this project.
Yeah, that's a higher contingency, but.
Are there any other questions? I'll make this motion.
There you go.
I move the recommendation to the board to award the construction contract for the reclaimed waterline relocation Loudoun County Parkway project to William A. Hazel Incorporated for $1,942,100 with an approximate 10% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $2,136,300. Additional costs will require board approval, and I recommend that this be put on the board consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. Next one. Board of Construction Contract Central System Valve and Vault Improvements.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I will present on the award of the construction contract for this project, and we will start by maybe providing a little bit of a callback to what Amelia was talking about earlier on the Sterling area being amongst, if not our older part of the service system overall. So we won't rehash, the age of the system or anything like that, but we will add to this by saying that In identifying the need to replace these valves by O&M and asset management, our engineer, in conjunction with our group, determined that there was opportunity to review the existing system and provide additional valves to minimize maintenance-related disruptions and overall provide a little bit more efficiency in the operation of the system. And then why, you might ask, we take a project like this, which seems simple from the outset, right? Replacement of valves and source it out to contractors. Valves are larger than what we typically handle in-house with our line maintenance group and other groups within our organization. And it is in an area where there's certain VDOT related sensitivities associated with the high volume of the roadways, which require major MOT operations. There's also some deeper replacements that we have to perform. So all in all, I think the group took a good long look at the overall scope of work and determined that it was better off outsourced.
I'm just curious, is it the types of valves that we're doing it because they're antiquated, or is it just valves in general? I'm just trying to understand.
We will get to that in this part of the, and maybe I'll just jump ahead to it. I think what we had observed, not only in our assessment, but as we started the design and we're trying to figure out, how a contractor would isolate certain sections of the system in order to replace the interim valves. A lot of the valves that are existing just are not functioning. They're not holding flow. And so not only did that provide, further driver for the replacement, but also along with this age, but also introduced some construction related constraints that led the design team to then be a little bit more prescriptive with the sequence of work that we provided to the contractor. It's always going to be a suggested sequence of work, but what we are sort of promoting up front really is that we've already gone through the work of playing with the valves to see which ones you should try to tackle first in order to be able to really get.
So it's strongly suggested this is the sequence.
Very true, but we do, I should say, we do leave the door open for the contractor to take another look and come up with their own ideas to maximize their efficiency and
Understood.
actually save some money. Any other questions before we? So, in addition to replacement of the valve, there are some other minor bits of work were added along the way. Some cross fittings, installation of Foster adapters, 2 manhole removals, and then the installation of 4 transition adapters from PCCP to DI to ductile, 1 bolt removal, some extensions and fittings. So we probably call that a little more than just miscellaneous improvements and more, sort of an overall revision of the system as needed based on its age.
Yeah.
But not so good news, right? We typically don't like to see only one, but we did see good news, right? It is well within the range of the estimate that our engineer, J2 incidentally, name engineer from Amoyo's project that he just presented. They lay landed, with range there. So our took a good long look at the typical sort of responsibility and responsiveness of the contractor. So we requested references to make sure that they were for the job and ultimately deemed them appropriate to take on the work. Contingent upon committee and board approval, intent is to start this work in the middle of 2026 here in the summer, and see a anticipate about a year of construction for this project.
Did I hear you say there was only one bid? Misinterpret. Oh, so any thoughts on why that was the case? Why it was only one?
I thought somebody might ask, and what we got in we subsequent project.
This was just bandwidth to respond is what I'm.
And what we saw in the bid for that project, we got 7 bidders. So, and then we will be presenting
In June.
in June.
Okay.
So you think we're just bandwidth the contractors to respond, to put resource together?
We heard that directly from some contractors that the bids were relatively close to each other. And when faced with this other project, which is Broadband Farms, and we'll bring that forward next month, significantly bigger project, right? And so they were focused on that one. This one is sort of an odd size of a project. It was actually part of another project. It was a larger project. We'd bundled some sort of smaller projects together to create a bigger one. Due to some external factors, we had to carve this out to bring this forward. So it's a little bit of an odd size of a project. Some of the bigger firms like Hazel or Shirley not really going to go after a project like this, and there aren't a ton of smaller contractors that do this work, and then those that do this work were focused on our other project. So that was a little bit of a lesson for us to maybe separate some things in terms of bid timing. But the good news is on the other project, and we won't give any spoilers, but on the other project, we did get 7 bidders. So.
And Savita, was Mueller one of the bidders on that other project as well?
Yes, I believe so. Right. Yeah.
Any
Valve
benefit?
replacements is a nasty kind of contract, really.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
If we had 7 bids on the other one, is there any benefit to going back to the 6 that are not going to get that awarded to them and have them
Yeah,
rebid this one?
That is something that we discussed. We also discussed rebidding this project. Again, due to external factors and timing needs, we really have to get moving on this project. We don't really have time to rebid. And if we did, because we don't have a July CIP, we're now talking about August, September, right before we can start. So.
I had a few answers teed up for that one, but everyone, I did see a question from Mr.
Allen.
Yeah, good morning. This might be for Brian or for Alton, but are any of these projects the ones that Supervisor Saines mentioned at the Board of Supervisors Finance Committee meeting that we attended last week?
Yes, Mr. Allen, this is the project that Supervisor Saines was mentioning, and that's what Savita was just referring to. We were trying to stay well ahead of getting this done in a timely fashion so that VDOT can continue with their paving work. And our intent, just for the benefit of the rest of the committee here, Supervisor Saines did request that we provide monthly status updates on this project to his office, and that's our intention going forward, is to stay closely engaged. They're essentially Sterling Boulevard from Route 7, I believe, to Route 28 is in poor condition, and VDOT is gearing up to repave that entire section of roadway. They've essentially deferred their project a bit, and they're going to do some spot repairs so that we can get this done and we don't have to get back in there and open up the roadway right after they've just paved it.
With
Okay,
the
thank you.
road closures, they're going to be tasked with a lot to keep that traffic moving. It's a very busy road.
Right. And we've talked internally about the sensitivities to not only Supervisor Saines' requests about completing this in a timely fashion, but also working very closely with Mueller to go above and beyond with, sensitivity to timing and traffic control and those sorts of things.
Did you copy us on the status report that you sent to the supervisor?
Sure.
Was it going to be just an email or?
That's our intention.
Yeah, I don't know if the other members are interested, but I'd like a
always.
copy of it.
There's our typical CIP snapshot. As we said, the bids received were well within our CIP budget for 2026 to 2035. And I did want to expand very briefly on what Amoya presented with regards to our 10% contingency. The committee will recall that last year we brought an informational item that provided some drivers that we were looking at. So this is not a blanket 10% contingency across the board. That is not the intent. When we have lower dollar value projects with heavy underground components in their scope, we are leaning to the more conservative 10% contingency for those projects. And both of the presented projects reflect following through on that commitment. With that, I'll read the recommended motion to the board.
Anyone?
I'll read it.
You want to make?
I move the recommendation to the board to award the construction contract for the valve replacements and miscellaneous improvements. Phase one project to Miller Incorporated for $1,890,000. Approximate 10% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $2,080,000. Additional costs require board approval. And put this on consent.
All in favor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
The next item is combined capital construction quarterly report.
All right, good morning. Sam and I are here today to share the first quarter 2026 capital construction report. And so our agenda for this morning, we've got two snapshots here, one on the Broad Run Phase 3 Package 1 site work project, and then the community system ammonia removal progressive design build as well. And then we'll dive deeper into the Milestone Reservoir and Pump Station project, and then wrap up with our quarterly numbers there for active, upcoming, and completed projects. So our first snapshot here is the Phase 3 Package 1 site work project. So this is the first of 4 projects associated with the Broad Run Phase 3 expansion. This project lays the groundwork for the 3 follow-on vertical projects that will come later. And our contractor on this project is William A. Hazel. It's just under $12 million contract value. And then through the end of the first quarter, contractor has billed out $60,000. And so we are under construction there. We started construction officially February 9th. We have completed mobilization, some E&S controls, and clearing and grubbing through the end of the first quarter. And then ongoing, we're working through rough grading, sedimentation, basin work, and taking some delivery of materials and equipment. And then we'll move on to the community system ammonia removal progressive design build project. So the purpose of this project was to upgrade 3 community system wastewater treatment plants to meet the new ammonia removal regulations. And this came before the committee and the board earlier this year. Contractor is Clark Water. Contract value is $58.4 million. And through the end of the first quarter, we didn't have any billings from the contractor. We just started construction in March on this project. And so we are technically in the pre-construction stage of the project here. We've done our kickoff meeting and we're working through permit applications and then our ongoing work. We're wrapping up design, continuing with those permit acquisitions, contractors doing some utility coordination and prep for mobilization. And I'll share this with you. You may have thought that I was a little conflicting with what I said there. So we are technically in the Phase 2 construction portion of this project. It was divided up into Phase 1 design, Phase 2 construction, but the break point between design and construction is 90% design. So that last 10% of design technically falls in the construction phase or Phase 2, and that involves the permit acquisitions. And that's really where we're spending most of our effort right now so that we can then mobilize and truly get started with construction. That's all I have for you this morning. If there's no questions, hand it off to Sam for Milestone.
Thank you, Rick. Good news across the board on Milestone Reservoir, still on schedule, obviously under construction. At the end of the first quarter, as you can see in the image there, we really see the structure taking shape. Momentum in construction has been very good. Contractor is, I think at the end of the first quarter, he was reporting around 120 to 130 days of positive float on the project, which is a positive, but it's actually introduced some interesting challenges that we'll talk about here in a couple of the next slides. Overall, the change order figures look good. This reflects around maybe a little bit over 100,000 in addition to what we saw at the end of the year of 2025, just reflecting the revised contract value. Percent spent, 61% over time elapsed, 51. Not always reflective of, ahead of schedule progress, but it is in this case, right? So, and then on this image, you see the fill pipe that routes through the bottom tunnel C, and sort of daylights at the quarry here at the
What is the surface next to the pipe? What is that surface? Is dirt?
No. This is finished concrete. It's a concrete slab that was poured on all three tunnels, and then shotcrete liner on the surface of every.
Some of the hardest
that
granite
come-
around.
So that pathway is concrete.
Yes, everything on the bottom and around the circumference of the tunnel is. I was foreshadowing to some interesting challenges, right? As we significantly exceed the expectations on schedule, that puts the engineer in the tricky spot where commissioning work then is anticipated to start that much earlier. So our team has tasks with programming the facility. We've trying to get that be proactive. That's not to say that it's a guarantee that we will get there a little bit earlier, but we have been updated this point here on the slide from Q3 to Q2 for the start of commissioning, which then also advances the need to coordinate with the adjoining facilities, Trap Rock and the Potomac station. Years, not a lot to say here. Pretty steady over.
What contributed to the 130 days ahead? It's way the hell ahead.
A lot of it has to do with Drill Tech really knocking out that geotech, that heavy civil work, well ahead of schedule. There was a lot of assumed risk associated with these 3 times deep shaft that really didn't materialize. As the critical path shifted to the north, you had big switchgear transformers, things like that also didn't quite materialize to the full extent of their, the potential risk, right? So it's sort of everything. Credit has to be given to for really keeping momentum going. The rest of the work that it wasn't as critical. So that's probably the best story for him.
It's 130 days ahead of schedule.
It's me.
Yeah.
But we haven't hit startup, Mr. Sullivan.
Sounds good. That'll kick it back over to Rick for a quick.
I think here I'll just kind of put it up to any questions on the active projects.
Just got to keep the theme going and we'll just ask Sam all the questions and we'll just say, you did a great job.
My projects are at the bottom there. You can see they're in the early stages.
I've said this before and probably being boring about saying it, but you guys do an excellent job of construction. But without a good set of plans and specs, your job would be a lot harder. So some congratulations has to be given to the design end of the facility. I mean, you guys would probably do a good job anyway, of course.
Take it.
Just one question about the generator. That should be very close to commissioning. Is that right?
It's a little bit of a spoiler for the next quarter, but it did achieve substantial completion pretty much exactly on the contractual date. Mr. Sol, it never gets old to hear it, so. completed construction quarters on the first quarter of 2026. Lots of activity forecasted for the next 6 months, which is depicted on this slide here. And with that, I think we will pause for questions.
No questions?
No questions.
Okay, capital spending summary report.
I think we have two of them,
And below the line.
one for March and one for April. So I guess I'll just ask if there are any questions.
Good news is they're below the line, right?
Sure.
Your point of view.
Depends on how you look at it.
I have no questions. No.
Great.
Good report. So, yeah, no questions.
Okay,
That was it. That's the last item.
And we just talk about the tentative next meeting. Next meeting's June 25. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, Chair?
I guess that's it.
Yep.
I think that's the last item. Motion to adjourn.
Second that?
All in favor?
All right.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.